Oh my god. They enriched us. What I love about this is the difference between internet slang and what they actually said at Martha's Vineyard. They enriched us. Oh god. So why didn't you hold them more? Like, isn't that like a little bit of enrichment? Like you could have gone all the way. Like you could have given them homes. Martha's Vineyard is actually a seasonal place where people have summer homes, and there were plenty of beds where those migrants could have waited until they were processed. Probably much better conditions than at the military base that they were escorted to. Voluntarily, by the way. How many militaries did they set? I think it was like 500 soldiers or something. Whatever. They enriched us. Ooh. Yeah. Liberals, man, liberals. You know, like, I just realized this would have been such an amazing PR spin if the Obamas, for example, would have actually allowed them to stay at their summer home. Like, think about it. The Obamas could have allowed them to stay at their summer home for like 1 year or so. And it would have been like the best PR campaign that the Democrats could have made. But unfortunately, they had to call the military. Whatever. You know, it is what it is. Enriched. How many dollars? I don't know. Like, they only stood there for 24 hours. So it's not like they... Still, well, of course, if the Obamas would have taken them in, then DeSantis could have flown more, and then that would have been a problem, you know. Hello, Razmaz. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about brutal architecture. You know what's interesting? We don't have that in Romania. We do not have brutal architecture. Sorry, not brutal. Oh, shit. Hostile. That's why they call it. Hostile architecture. Yes. We don't have that in Romania. I'm going to show you what I mean in a bit. So initially, this was made as a joke, right? Like, this wasn't an actual wheelchair design, but it was to show the social justice version of woke capitalism, where like the capitalism is there, it's just as harsh and brutal as it always was, but they wrap it in a nice package of social justice. They make it sound like, oh yes, we care about people. In reality, this type of bench is to prevent homeless people from sleeping. All right, like there is absolutely no reason why you would leave an empty space so that the person with a wheelchair can go in. Because, like, the person with the wheelchair can sit literally next to the bench, right? Like, they don't have to sit in the middle. The only reason you would put it in the middle is so that homeless people cannot sleep here. And initially, it was a joke, right? But then, like, people genuinely took it seriously. And as you can see, you have these images with benches that have, like, the wheelchair person sitting in. And by the way, like, these benches are absolutely horrible, because like overwhelmingly 99% of the time you're not going to have a person with a wheelchair. So like, if you want to sit with your significant other, like imagine I'm taking a walk with my wife in the park and I want to sit on a bench. Look at the distance apart that I have to sit with her, right? Like I can't sit next to her, and all of this shit is so that homeless people don't get to sleep. It is absolutely fucking horrible. And the fact that it's you know, sold as, oh, this is a social justice initiative. This is a, you know, like, we're actually caring about people with special needs. Fucking bullshit. Like, you're using these people as a shield in order for you to sell your hostile architecture to the public. Sorry about that, John. I have to go on a little bit of a rant, because it's upsetting me. You know, like, the thing with homeless people, I actually do have compassion for them. Like, I know the homeless people in the United States are different than the homeless people in Romania, right? Like, I completely understand that. The thing with homelessness is that everyone can end up homeless at some point in their lives. Like, even you, right? Like, you can end up having your house burning down, or like an earthquake that takes your house down, and then you're homeless, right? So it would be nice if there was compassion and systems in place for people in such a predicament. Now, I do understand that some homeless people are junkies, and it's usually the junkiness that causes people to become homeless, because like when you're high all the time and when you spend all your money to buy drugs, then you're not going to be able to afford getting a job and being presentable at work and whatnot. Like, I get that shit, right? I'm not going to judge the people that are homeless and they fall into various vices, because, like, let's be honest, if I was fucking homeless, or if you are homeless, chat, if you are homeless, wouldn't you drink? Like, be honest, like, there's nothing else you can do. Like, you're on the streets, you're suffering from the elements, life can't be more fucked up than that level. At least drink to pass the time, like, it's not that it's not understandable, right? This is why I generally have compassion for some of these people. There is, of course, like, the mental illness question. Like, a lot of people who suffer from mental illness and they can't hold the job and maybe they don't have family, they can end up homeless. But, like, my point is that I generally have compassion for the homeless. Fun fact, by the way, this is something you guys probably don't know, but when I started my channel, I think it was 2015, when I started my YouTube channel, there was this guy, I forgot his name, he had an X in the name, right? And I had a live stream with him because he was a person who used to be homeless and then managed to get his life around. And I had a live stream, we talked about how it's like being homeless and how it's like to live on the streets, and he told me all of the things that he used to do in order to survive. And apparently now, he works for the government, doing government contracts, and he makes around $10,000 a month. So what I want to say is that, well, probably this isn't the rule, and this isn't like the average thing, but there are people who are homeless who, if given the opportunity, they can turn their life around. And it's not, like, it's not a good thing to constantly disparage or look down upon homeless people, because A, any one of us can end up on the street one day, and it's absolutely horrible. And B, if we do end up on the street one day, it's nice if we were to have a chance to climb back up. Now, of course, in the United States, there are problems, like in California, yeah, and then there are people who don't want that hand. There is, for example, a lot of people that I know who... Okay, perfect story time. I have said this in the beginning in another live stream, but in case if you guys don't know, there was this individual which during the pandemic in Romania, he was caught on a horse, right? So big lockdowns in the cities, no one was traveling, and yet you have this guy on a horse. So the police stop him, and they find out that his wife was given birth at the hospital. So he took a horse because he couldn't take any taxi, he couldn't take anything else. He took a horse in order to go to the hospital so that he can see his wife giving birth. Now, the police, they were understanding, and they took him in the cop car and they drove him to the hospital. The horse was taken care of. A lot of people ask, like, what happened with the horse? And then this caught the attention of the public. So people in the public started donating to him. There was this MMA fighter as well who gave him a lot of money and a job. And he managed to get, I think, like $60,000 from donations. Like, he managed to make a lot of money. So now he had the car. Because the guy was living in, like, abject poverty. Like, the guy was, like, barely surviving. Like a house built out of straws. Right? Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, he was at the lowest level of society. He wasn't homeless, but it was very difficult. Right? So, he got a job. He got $50,000. He got a house. He had a car. Like, all of these things. And within a couple of months, he ends up selling the house. So he moved back to where he initially lived. He didn't show up for the job. He kept the car. But, like, he was back at being poor. So I fully understand that there are people who, even if given a hand, even if you throw money at them, even if you give them the opportunity, their mindset, their way of life is going to keep them at being poor. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying. I don't think that, again, like the original person on my stream, which I met when I started my channel, who used to be homeless, and he managed to turn his life around. I think that's the reason why we should keep trying. I think that's the reason why we shouldn't give up on the homeless population. Holy shit, Bob. I haven't seen a pink super chat in years. Thank you for it. I appreciate it. Chris Primer, what do the usual suspect of woke think of anti-homeless architecture? Not the politicians, but the progressives on the street. Okay, I can tell you. So, Blizzard Entertainment made a game. Blizzard Entertainment made Overwatch 2, right? And in Overwatch 2, they included the anti-homeless architecture. So, this was a very interesting thing, right? Because it could have sparked a conversation. Like Overwatch 2 had anti-homeless architecture, right? So, instead of sparking a conversation, what the progressives did is that they demanded it gets removed from the game. In other words, they don't want to fucking talk about it, chat. They would rather talk about Meghan Markle being offended on things on Twitter. They would rather talk about Oprah claiming that she's getting mean tweets. That's what they care about, right? Like the American elites, right? Like the actress who plays Ariel, like she gets mean things on Twitter. That's what the progressives want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the homeless. They don't want to talk about the orphans. They don't want to talk about the actual people who could benefit from help. They don't give a flying shit. Another way, out of sight, out of fucking mind. That's what they want to do. You know, they don't want to even think about that. So that's the answer to like what the woke think about the homeless. They don't want to talk about it. If pressed, oh sure, they will talk about it and they will probably say it's like, oh yes, but like there's a lot of minorities and LGBT folks with an X that are homeless and we need to care about that, right? Like they are so stuck on identity politics that they don't give a fuck. Like for them, identity is more important than class. Like for them, Michelle Obama, because she's black, is a lot more oppressed than a homeless person who is white, right? Like that's the. I mean, look, I'll show you something else, right? Like this is the values of America right now, and when I say America, like obviously, right? Because I get a lot of people in the comment section go like, oh look, V, I'm American, like this doesn't represent me, blah blah blah. Like no, I get it. But like when I say America, I mean like what the media talks about, right? Like what the American culture is like what your elites are saying, what your talking heads are saying. That's what I'm trying to portray. I'm not saying that every single American is like this, right? So here you have an actress, right? At the what is this? I think it's the voting at the VMAs, right? So she's at the VMAs. This is a millionaire, by the way, right? This is a millionaire. Probably her dress is worth more than what I make a month. And listen to her speech, right?
I don't know what music video for good means, but I do know what your vote means, and that's a lot. Your vote means everything to me. It means everything to making a change in this country. So remember, when you're voting for your favorite artist, vote to change some of these laws that are oppressing us.
So this is a millionaire in the United States, one of the richest people in the world, chat. Like literally, right? Like she is one of the most privileged people in the world. There are people in Eastern Europe that would change their place with her in a heartbeat, but she considers herself to be oppressed. This is America right now. The millionaires are oppressed. Right? Like the rich created an ideology where they don't have to help the poor. The rich have to help each other. And the rich have to donate and care about each other rather than look at the negative effects that are happening in American society. So that's pretty much what it is. You know, like that's America right now, the modern America. Like, and again, I'm not talking about like American citizens but what I am saying, like, if I was a historian, right, and you only have access to these types of footage and like what's on TV and what's primetime news, and you look at that, and you look at, holy shit, this was the culture of America in 2022, where you have a millionaire going up there on stage claiming that she is oppressed. And then you also have Meghan Markle, literal royalty. Like, she is literally royalty. She's got a royal fucking title. She's an aristocrat claiming to be oppressed. Next to Oprah, which is also a millionaire, right? So you have all these millionaires on television talking about how difficult life is, where there are people who can't put food on the fucking table, right? They will not invite a person from the ghetto. They will not invite someone who actually lives in the Bronx to go on television and to talk about how life is like. No, they don't give a shit about that. They will give you what an actor, an artist, a famous person, what they care about. And if you don't care about their plight, then you're a bad person. So yes, if the US would have hyperinflation, she would have a point, probably. Yeah, but that is probably going to be a video from me. Like that is literally what I think of when I think about modern American culture. Like that is such a great representation. I don't think you can find anything better than that. I think that is the epiphany. You know, like this lady on a stage who's a multi-millionaire talking about how oppressed she is as she's taking a prize from other rich people. It's like, dude, bruh. Anyway, right. So, regarding the homeless, the thing with the homeless, and this is my genuine thought, you can tell the virtues of a society based on how they treat their homeless. Now, there is a caveat. I do understand when you live in California and you have way more homeless than a country should. Like, California has so many homeless that is a complete outlier, to the point where you have to ask the people in charge, you have to ask the politician, how the fuck did it get to this? So in California is a different aspect. It's a outlier. It's absolutely horrible that it has gotten to that. I don't even know if you can fix it at this point. I mean, the population of homeless people in California now is probably similar to what some big villages in Romania have as populations. Like, it's just, wow. I'm not saying it's just California, but what I am saying is that what is in California is an outlier. Like, that's not normal. All right, like you like every country, every state has homeless people. Like, that is normal. You're not going to get a place, even in Switzerland, you're not going to get a place with zero homeless people. Like, that's just not going to happen. Okay, but California is also an outlier. Here in Western Canada, the homeless tent city stretch for an hour drive. Yeah, it's almost like wherever you have woke politicians, you're going to have homeless. And it kind of makes sense if you think about it, right? Because here in Eastern Europe, there's a lot of politicians that talk about homeless all the fucking time, right? Like, what they can do, how they can prevent homelessness, what else they, right? Like, it's a matter of policy. People talk about, like, how can we prevent that? But when you have woke politicians, they don't give a shit. When's the last time you heard, I don't know, Joe Biden talk about the homeless? When's the last time you heard Hillary Clinton address the issue? Right? Like, they talk about minorities and sexual minorities and race and whatever, right? Like, they talk about those, but they never talk about homelessness. And when they do talk about homelessness, it's also within the concept of race and gender. So that's why you don't see people addressing this stuff, right? And when I see this stuff, it is absolutely horrible. I mean, you should prevent this from... This doesn't exist in my country. Like, again, I keep saying in Romania, I think, like, I add a different perspective for Americans, but I have not seen this in my city, and I don't think it exists in the nation capital as well, right? And Romania is a lot poorer than the United States. Take that into account, right? And we have our homeless and we have our beggars, but we don't have this. Like this is so fucking grotesque to look at. They are the cause of bad healthcare and bad mental healthcare. So I do not know about mental healthcare, because in Eastern Europe there is a huge stigma with mental healthcare, right? Like, people here in Europe, they have a disparaging view towards mental health. Why? Because the communists, and you can look this up on Wikipedia because it actually happened, the communists would use the psychiatric system as a means of imprisonment. Like, it was actually called punitive psychiatry. So in other words, if you had a political dissident, if you had a journalist, you had someone inconveniencing the main party who had to be shooed away through unofficial channels, like you didn't want to make a public spectacle of it, right? Like, let's say you have a writer that writes against communism. Well, all of a sudden you can say, oh, he's kind of crazy, he's kind of insane. So he would be sent to a madhouse, to a psychiatry ward, which was worse than a prison. And there he would have been pumped full of drugs on a bed, and he would be like, for the rest of his life, no visitors, no rights, no nothing. And the public would have been told, like oh, you like reading this guy's book? Why don't you know he was crazy? Oh, well, if you read his book, you might get crazy as well. You should be careful. You might end up where he is, right? So, because of that, because of punitive psychiatry, here in Eastern Europe, most people have a huge stigma towards the concept of mental health, which is quite sad, because I hope things change, right? Like, mental health is a serious issue, and it should be taken care of. But my point is, despite the fact that here we do not have programs to support mental health people, we still do not have the same number of homelessness that exists in the United States. What I personally think, and this is my opinion, is that drugs have a lot to do with it. Like, if you get high on drugs, and you get addicted to drugs, and I'm not talking about marijuana, I'm talking about like fentanyl and other harmful substances like heroin and stuff, right? If you get addicted to them, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep a job. It's going to be very difficult for you to keep close relationships with your immediate family. So eventually you're going to burn all the bridges, you're going to run out of money, and you're going to end up on the streets. So that's what I think you have this big problem in California now. It's not necessarily, and by the way, I don't think that you can even throw money at the problem. Like, if you take a random homeless person who's like a drug addict, right? And you just send him, like you buy him a house and you give it to him. You know, he might use the house, but I don't think he will have the money to pay for the taxes for that house, to pay for the utilities, to keep upgrading the house and maintain it in a good way. So what these people need is to reintegrate in society first, to be able to like stop being like if they are drug addicts or drunk alcoholics or whatever, they need to first fix those issues, and then they need to be reintegrated in society. And even then, you talk about a huge number of people. Some of them might not even want to. It's such a difficult problem. There used to be a blog called That Guys on Crack that just took pictures of homeless drug addicts in Baltimore. The author called them zombies or leaners because they were almost falling over. Yeah, I mean, I can't even judge them. I can't judge them because, like, when you end up being homeless and you're that desperate that you got nothing left to do, what are your options? You know, like, what do you do for, like, you just want the time to pass as fast as possible so that you can get to the next day. You know, like, I can't, it's a nightmare. But I do understand that if you have a person that's a functioning member of society and he starts doing drugs, I can see how that could end up with him being homeless, as well as having mental issues, right? So anyway, let's look at some of the brutal architecture, right? So you have like all of these mayors and all of these city planners. They're trying to do the brutal architecture in a way that's not necessarily obvious, right? Because this is what most people want to see. Like, they want to see that the parks are beautiful and they're nice, but they don't want to see this, right? Like, this is so obvious. Like, this is obvious, and, you know, like, people start asking, oh, well, the mayor is an asshole, you know, like, can we not... So what they want to do is to still prevent homeless people from sitting on benches, but at the same time, not make it obvious for the general public. So, for example, when you see these benches outside of the Royal Court of Justice in London, they're angled and they're uncomfortable to lie on, specifically to prevent homeless people. But when you're looking at them, like, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, right? When you look at them, it doesn't seem like they're homeless unfriendly. They just look like modern architecture, but in reality, they are designed not just to prevent homeless people from sleeping, but to also prevent other tourists and people traveling by to notice that these are actually hostile architecture. Give me just 1 second because I lost the chat. Jailing the mentally ill will come here. Our pension system is beyond bankrupt while we normalize mental illness in the media. Yeah, the thing with mental illness is so bizarre in the United States because on one hand, the left says, oh, well, we care about, people with mental illness and we should allocate more money and resources to them. But on the other hand, they keep removing things that are considered to be mentally ill. They keep removing them. So that's like the bizarre thing, right? Like if you remove a mental illness, like if activists pressure doctors, and doctors are human as well, right? Like doctors as an institution, like the medical career as an institution, it can also respond to activism and public pressure. So if the public pressure and the ideologues pressure the mental institutions to remove certain things as mental illness because, they cause stigma or whatever the fuck, right? You're basically taking away the ability of those people from A, seeking help, and B, receiving money from their health insurance to be able to go and request treatment. So, that is one problem. The other problem is in the United States, the mental asylums have been closed. Now, in Europe, we do have mental asylums. Mental asylums are meant to detain people who are a danger for themselves or others, but at the same time, they do not have the understanding to realize that what they are doing is wrong. So you don't want to put them in a prison because they don't know what they are doing, just like a child, right? Like a child doesn't know that what he is doing is wrong. We don't have the bullshit of trying as an adult. That's an American concept. It's so fucked up. But anyway, right? So a child doesn't understand that what he is doing is wrong, so you're not going to put him in a prison. And the same thing, like a person that's mentally ill, right? Like he doesn't understand that what he is doing is going to cause consequences for other people. And because of that, you can't put him in a prison. So you put him in a mental institute where hopefully he can gain help, right? And these used to be the mental asylums. However, in the United States, they were removed. I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing or not. There have been many abuses. I do think that the system needed work rather than removing. So, for example, as I mentioned before, like if you go on Wikipedia and look for punitive psychiatry, a lot of authoritarian regimes, they took advantage of the mental institutes in order to punish people. But that is not a reason to completely remove them. Like if there is a person that's legitimately mentally ill and he is a danger to himself or others, yeah, he should be placed in a facility and not in a prison. Getting rid of asylums was a bad idea, says Angry Napoleon. These people needed a place, removed from society where they can be helped. So the whole concept of punishing criminals wasn't rehabilitation. Like in the beginning, the concept of punishing criminals was to separate the law-abiding citizens from the non-law-abiding, right? So if you have a person that wants to hurt others, that is a danger to himself or others, you want to separate him from the people that just want to go about their daily lives. I like the spikes they put in windowsills in New York or under overpasses in California now. These people want praise for virtuous deeds without the virtuous acts. Thus, false virtue only for display. Well, you just explained how the modern progressive ideology is like. Like, if you look at the modern progressive ideology, it's all about speaking the speech, talking the correct talking points, but you can behave any way you want. For example, during the Oscar awards, right? Like, you have many artists, and they go up, and they talk about how they want to change the world, and they talk about social justice, and they talk about all this shit. And then what ends up happening is that before the Oscars, there was this this train station where a lot of homeless people would sleep in. So the city, they sent the police force in order to clear out the train station. So they went up and they cleared up some of the most marginalized folks in order for the famous millionaire artists to be able to have their speech about how much they care about the marginalized and the left. Absolutely disgusting. They also use these people for votes. I don't know if you can use homeless people for votes, to be honest. I don't even know how homeless people vote. I'm pretty sure some of them do, but like I mean, if do they even lean Democrat or Republican? I don't know. I mean, no politician at this point offers anything for the homeless, right? So, do the homeless vote? Probably, but like, do they vote left-leaning or right-leaning? I have no fucking idea. I don't know. Simply because there's no politician trying to appeal to them, I don't think that they are a significant voting bloc that let's say they vote the same in order to be able to influence an election. I don't know. I would have to look it up. Like, it would be interesting to see if homeless people vote left wing or right wing. But to be honest, if I was homeless, I don't think Republicans offer anything either, and I don't think the left offers you anything as well. So there are a few factors. Number one, California is illegal to hold anyone for mental health reasons besides imminent threat to others and self. Yeah, I mean, this is just complete rubbish. We don't do this in Europe. Drug addiction is tolerated and even enabled in cities with safe sites. Drug dealers are not prosecuted. It is illegal to remove the property of a homeless person, therefore encampments. So removing encampments is not necessarily a solution. I mean, they're just going to set up those encampments elsewhere, right? Because like the reason that homeless people don't want to go to homeless shelters, as I heard, is that number one, they can get sick because diseases get transmitted easily when there's a lot of people sleeping together. And not only that, they can get parasites and lice. Because, again, I spoke with homeless people, and that's what they told me. And secondly, there's a lot of theft going on, right? So they can end up with their shoes being stolen. They can end up with their belongings being taken away. But I do agree with the fact that drugs are the main reason why you have a huge homelessness population. Like a person that's a drug addict, and I'm not talking about marijuana, again, like I'm talking about hardcore drugs, they're going to have a very difficult time being integrated in society. Like, they're going to have a very difficult time. It depends on how much drugs they're taking, obviously, and what. But they're going to have a difficult time showing up to work and speaking coherently and, not getting in trouble with their boss. Maintaining good relationships with their family, so on and so forth. Well, all this drug talk makes me want to do drugs. Jesus. There are charities that help the homeless vote in California. Oh, fucking hell. Why do you know so much, Field of Bears? Democrat cities register them to vote at soup kitchens and at government welfare buildings. They just need the person on the rolls. Then they go to give them a sandwich or something for a signature. Isn't that fucking illegal? Like, isn't buying votes illegal? Like, it's interesting. At least in my country, that would be highly illegal, even though it's still being done. Like, this is the Eastern European way of voting. But the worst way of buying votes is what the Democrats are trying to do now with abolishing student debt. Like, that's literally buying votes, right? Like, you don't even want to fix the problem. Like, if the problem is student debt, like, you would want to abolish the possibility of people loaning money so that they can get an education, right? Because, like, if student debt is so bad, it's like, okay, well, you abolish student debt that exists now, but in the future, you still have student debt. Like, the next generation. So what are you going to do? Are you going to abolish it every fucking generation? Right? Like, this is what the Democrats are doing. And it's so smart because they held this up to the midterms, right? So that it's implied that if you don't vote for them now, you're not going to get your student debt abolished. So if I was an American citizen, like, let's say I was right-wing as fuck, like I was like incredibly right-wing, but I had student debt, even if I could pay it, like, even if it would take me, like, you know what, 2 more years, I pay my student debt. You have a politician that tells you, hey, I'm going to abolish it for you. That is so fucking tempting. Like, how is that not tempting? Like, you literally can vote, and you can have money just written off your check, written off your balance. It's like, oh my fucking God. How is that not buying votes? Like, that is literally buying votes. Yeah, it's like they're going to abolish it every generation now, right? Like every generation, they can just buy one election. Holy shit. Field of Bears lives in California now. Field, I feel bad for you. Chat, give Field of Bear a hug. You know what? Like, I'll tell you the good thing about living in California now, Field of Bears. You can be an atheist. It doesn't matter if you go to hell. Like, you already been there. You've been in California now. How bad can it be? Like, Satan, you know, how much harm can he do? Right? Compared to California, what more Satan can do? You know, like, it's already as bad. Holy shit. One thing we never talk about is some homeless are very happy being homeless. Oh yeah, sure. No, I know these people. I actually am aware that these people exist. For example, as I mentioned before, when I started my first live stream, I had a homeless person in an interview, right? And we talked, and he said that he knew this guy who was a beggar, and he wasn't a millionaire, but he was quite close. And this is like 2016, so like having $900,000, that was a lot of fucking money, right? And the way he did it is that he developed a system to the point where he knew where to beg at which hour in order to maximize gain. So he had this, I can't really call it a mansion, but it was like this beautiful suburban home where he would go and rest, and then he would go out and start begging. So there are these people that, you know, they managed to, I guess, like, through the course of their lives, they ended up on the street, but they had enough street smarts in order to know how to turn a profit. And they knew how to gamble the system to the point where they managed to make money, and they got themselves another house, but they don't want to live in that house. They want to still be on the streets, and they just keep making money. They would argue it is homeless aid, not cash. Oh, I see. Isn't that a Sherlock Holmes plot? I don't know if it is, but if it's a Sherlock Holmes plot, it's inspired from reality, because I know about those types of people existing in Romania. I've been told that they are in the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if every single country or local area has those type of people, which manage to make a lot of money from, you know, begging. By the way, fun fact, it's a crime to beg in Romania. E-begging is not a crime, but like, this is from communism times. Like, they didn't bother changing it, but like, begging is a crime in my country. So begging is the art of asking for cash without providing a service, and you do so repeatedly, right? I guess like the government doesn't like it when you get donations and you don't pay Uncle Sam or something. But yes, it's literally a crime to be poor in Romania. It's a crime to beg. I don't know if it's enforced. I mean, at the end of the day, what would the cops? What are the cops going to do? You know, they probably don't even bother processing the person. They just tell them, it's like, hey, you know, you can't beg here. Like, go away. Blah blah blah. But there is this story with Vlad the Impaler, who okay, so this is from old time Wallachia. Like, let me hold on. Let me give you a picture of Vlad the Impaler while I'm talking about this. So this is medieval time, right? Oh, here we go. We got Vlad here. I gotta say the foreigners they over exaggerated his story, but all right. So the concept of the deep state isn't something akin to capitalism or new. No, like, this existed even in medieval time. The deep state was the nobility, right? So famous nobles and boyars who had their own interests at heart that were on top of the nation. So they were very corrupt. And these nobles, they, in the case of Wallachia, which is the southern parts of Romania, they would plot with the Ottoman Empire to make sure that no king, well, we call them voivodes, but no king would manage to sit on the throne for more than 2 years or so, right? Because they didn't want someone to be on top of them, right? They wanted to keep doing their games and to make money without having someone to be on top of them. Now, the problem is that in the law of Wallachia, in the customs, whenever a king would ascend the throne, the dungeons would open. So all the petty criminals or the career thieves, you know, the highwaymen and the muggers and the rapists and the murderers, they would be let out. This was something normal. Even when Vlad the Impaler got on the throne, the same thing happened. The dungeons would open. Everyone was able to be forgiven of their crimes. Now, the reason for this was that this was supposed to be a very rare occurrence, right? You are supposed to have a king once every 40, 50 years. You aren't supposed to have one every 2 or 3 years. So because of that, like, the lands of Wallachia became incredibly dangerous, to the point where merchants weren't able to apply their trade unless they had mercenaries to guard them. So obviously the price of buying and purchasing goods was incredibly high. So the nation was suffering economically because of incredibly high crime rate. Very interesting parallels to what the deep state does, right? So when Vlad managed to ascend the throne, what he did was he created this grandiose feast. Again, in a medieval time, a big feast offered by the noble. This was very irresistible. Many people attended. Now, his guards prevented the peasantry and other, not normal, but like other good, decent folk from attending. So you literally have the guards telling you, saying, no, it's not for you. Who it was for beggars and thieves and murderers and other people. So they all went there, including other nobles that were problematic. And the doors were closed. He set the building on fire and had riders circling the building and shooting anyone that tried to escape. Now, the question that I had when I first heard the story is like, why the beggars? Right? And it turns out that Vlad actually had a speech where he considered the beggar to be worse than the highwayman. Because he said that while the highwayman tries to rob you, while he tries to mug you, you can defend yourself if you're skilled enough. The beggar applies to your Christian sense of honor. He applies to your virtue. He applies to your deeds as a good person. And so that's why he considered the beggar more dangerous. This is medieval morality, all right, from Vlad the Impaler. I do not share it, but it's probably one of the reasons why begging is criminalized in Romania. I guess it's a thing which, like, stemmed as a tradition from previous generations all the way up until now. Urlish for 200 Swedish kroner. Hey V, here is a small gift. Great video on the Chilean plebiscito today, which celebrates Chilean independence. So please say Viva Chile mierda. I see. I really love the history of Chile. It's fascinating, to say the least, so that the terms of service of YouTube doesn't find what I'm saying problematic. Thank you, Zodite, for the 350 Australian bucks. But yeah, no, so apparently Vlad's policies, like, he was so anti-thief and he was so anti-criminal to the point, and I don't know whether this is true or not, right? Like, this is legend, myth. It's, you know, we don't have YouTube videos when Vlad the Impaler was on the throne. But it is said that you could place a golden chalice in the middle of the city and no one would have the goals to take it. Like, no one would steal it. And there's various stories. Like, for example, there's this wealthy merchant that came from far away, and he was told, you know, he wanted to ask Vlad, where can he park his carriage? Because he had a lot of goods. And Vlad says that he can park it anywhere because, like, no one is going to touch it. And eventually, he comes the next day and tells Vlad, it's like, look, I did park it where you told me, but my a purse of gold that I had is missing. And Vlad says, like, all right, well, he's going to deal with it. Eventually, he finds the thief. He puts them on a spike. And he asked the merchant how much gold he had in the pouch. And the merchant said 99 gold. And Vlad says, well, if you'd have said 100, then you would have been on a spike as well now. So, you know, he had this reputation of, like, not tolerating people who were dishonest, people who were thieves. It's untrue how much is myth and how much is realistic. However, what it is true is that, yes, historians do account for the fact that Romania was a very dangerous place at the time. I say Romania, but I mean Wallachia. It was a very dangerous place, and on top of that, Vlad managed to turn things around. He managed to improve the country economically, significantly so. He also had many victories against the Ottoman Empire. Didn't fare well with the Hungarian alliance, but other than that, yes. What if the thief already spent some gold? I guess bad luck for the merchant. I don't know. Right. I'm pretty sure like some innocents might have been impaled. Like I don't think it was just the guilty. The thing with Vlad, as historians like to hypothesize, he wasn't a really big fan of the LGBT community. And the reason I'm saying this is that it was customary for the nobles of the land to give one son to the Ottoman court as a ward. So in other words, if you were a king in Wallachia, right, if you're a voivod, you had to give your son to the Sultan as proof that you're not going to rebel against the Ottoman Empire. If you rebelled against the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan would have decapitated the son, right? So that's the thing with the words. Now, Vlad was actually one such word. And it is said that that particular Sultan enjoyed young boys. So there was a little bit of buggery that may have gone between the Sultan and Vlad, which is why Vlad had a deep disdain and hatred towards the Ottoman Empire. That's what the historians claim, right? So it's probably true, given the fact that he did dislike the Ottoman Empire a lot more than even other voivodes at his age. So anyway, this is an example of homeless architecture, right? Like the thing that they're doing is that they're creating various shapes to the point where you don't notice that they're supposed to be anti-homeless, but actually they are. So rocky pavements as well, right? Like they want to avoid this, basically. Like they want to avoid the obvious that this is a thing where homeless people aren't welcomed and they shouldn't sleep on. And at the same time, they want to present it to the public that it's, it's a beautiful place. I haven't seen any of these in my country. Okay? Like, we have homeless here, but I have never seen anything like this. Yeah, oh yeah, it's modern art. Abso-fucking-lutely, yes. Street dividers? Well, large planters on pavements might not just be there to make the place greener. They're also used to fill up space where people can sit, or as roadblocks to keep out skateboarders, cyclists, or others. Okay, so the thing with cyclists, like, I kind of understand. I have to say, this may be controversial. Chat, I fucking hate cyclists. I hate them with such a fucking passion. You can buy a car, chat. Just stop being poor. Stop cycling, okay? Buy a car, all right? Burn some coal. Be a decent person. It's just buy an American vehicle and pump up some gas, like vroom, vroom, vroom. Do that. I hate cyclists. I hate them so fucking much, chat. I don't know. Like, do I have to explain it? Like, if it's a deep immersion feel. Look, maybe it's due to trauma when I was a child. Like, my daddy never held my tushy when I was on a bicycle. I never learned how to bicycle. So maybe that's why, like, maybe this is some ingrained, deep disapproval towards people who cycle. Let me show you why. This is where my trauma began, chat. This is where my fucking trauma began. Let me see if I can find you a picture from my town so you can understand the pain which I had to go through. I can't find it, but I'll show you nevertheless. Show you something similar. All right, this is similar, chat. This is why I hate cycling. Cyclists, actually, I hate them. So this is the sidewalk, right? And half of it is being taken by this red stripe of horror and dread. And this is where the cyclists go, boom, cling, 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 cling. Now, allegedly, you have enough place to walk next to them. However, if you're with your significant other, like if you're with your wife and you want to walk side by side, especially if you have a woman that keeps pushing you to the right, I don't know, maybe she's got like this ear infection, which just makes her go to... But like my point is, like she's pushing me into the cyclist part. Yeah, and when you reach this part, like you're not allowed, like this is their space. It's almost like they marked it, you know, like the cyclists, they every night they go here and they take a piss on it to mark it as their fucking territory. And they get really upset if you walk on it. So they go like, ting, 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 ting. I hate them, chat. I fucking hate them. I despise cyclists. Like, I hope that the government is going to make more of these. Like, these are excellent. I want them. I want more of them, you know. Street dividers. It's what I want street dividers in my fucking town. Street dividers. I never got a 10-speed. No, my dad never hold my tushy when I was riding a bike. No. See, already, Aiden Paladin, you lost 10 reputation points with me because you're riding a bike. Here in the US, cyclists take over the whole damn road. Everywhere they go. Oh, I can feel the pain. Holy shit. Maybe the head leading is her trying to put her head on your shoulder. No, it's not that. She, like, look. If you're walking straight, like, she will keep bumping you to the right, like, for some reason, and eventually you realize that she's trying to push you into outgoing traffic. I think that she wants my house, chat. I think that she wants my house. I need to figure out a way so that she doesn't take my house. And maybe I should take her off the wheel or something so that she doesn't push me to outgoing traffic. Like, you can start, because I tried measuring this. Like, you start on the left side of the road, and she keeps pushing you to the right and to the right. And you don't notice this is like the slow boiling of the frog effect, right? Like, she just, like, ushers you, like, a little closer, closer. And then you realize that you're on the fucking street. I know a person that does that. Yeah, I think, like, the reason, for, like, a medical thing, it might be a congenital disorder, with the inner ear, right? So the inner ear is the part that we use for balance. Basically, you know, like, if you close your eyes and you walk, you can still walk straight because your inner ear is monitoring your balance. Is the reason why you get VR sickness or motion sickness. So in this particular case, yeah, I think she might have, like, a small disorder with one ear, and it's like, woo. But still, if you're lost in a desert and try walking in a straight line to get out, you'll actually elk in a giant circle. What the fuck? Is that true? If you're lost in a desert and try walking in a straight line to get out, you'll actually elk in a giant circle favoring your dominant leg. Is this why Moses got lost in the fucking desert for 40 years, chat? Was he walking around in fucking circles? Sorry. I just found out the reason why Moses managed to get lost in the desert for so long. You need a reference point. Holy shit. I don't think this is true, chat. I don't think it's fucking true. I don't think, like, if you're in the desert and you walk in a straight line, you actually walk in a fucking... Get the fuck out. That's not... Dude, that is not plausible. Shut up. That is not true. That is... No. I saw movies. I saw Better Call Saul. He walked in a straight line. And then, you know, I guess it matters what type of desert, right? Because there's like the normal desert, and there's the cheap knockoff imitation. So, let me show you something. Alright. This is the Chad desert, chat. This is the actual desert, right? Like when you say desert, this is what I want to see. And then you have like the bullshit cheap imitation, like the American desert. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? This is where the coyotes go. You got coyotes and no. Look, this is the actual desert. I actually want to travel to Egypt. I want to see the pyramids, chat. I want to see the fucking pyramids one day. Las Vegas, yes. The sun and stars are references. Yeah, but like the sun keeps moving, right? Like the sun doesn't stay still. The sun just... Anyway. Hold on. Chotomate. So, we're almost done with the article. What next we got? Did you notice that a lot of these hostile environments are in fucking London and California? Where am I reading this from? This is an international newspaper. Why are almost all of them in London? South Hampton Street marks the start and end of route with hot drinks for regulars. The people have been replaced with planters. I see. Well, yeah. Boulders and other objects blocking spaces. This is... I wouldn't call this necessarily like a hostile architecture because a homeless person can still like set up shop between them. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is the case. Some neighbors pulled together $2,000 to dump 24 boulders into the sidewalk as a form of anti-homeless decoration. The city won't remove them, so I put their rocks on the Craigslist free selection. Yeah, by the way, this is like yeah, California. Yeah, look, like California and London. Like these seems to be the places with the most anti-homeless architecture. The thing is, like, if you're a private business owner, I can understand their point of view as well, right? Like, if you're a private business owner and you have, like, homeless people shooting heroin in front of your store and stuff, like, yeah, I can see why you would be worried that that might drive off clients. Even if they're not doing heroin, they're just sitting there. Like, yeah, like, it may not be agreeable for clients to come in. So I can understand the problem with the business owners. The main issue is the politicians, right? Like, you shouldn't have so many homeless to the point where people are actually considering like dropping $2,000 so that they can put boulders in front, right? Like the problem isn't necessarily the people, it's the politicians. That's my take on it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and thank you for the super chats. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasant hour, and I will play Black Mesa, just not today. Also, maybe. Just maybe, I will play Black Mesa with some of you, right? Because I wanted to play Black Mesa with some people, and I went on my Discord, and I said, you know what? I want to play Black Mesa. And I genuinely, like, don't understand people. Like, they came on my Discord because, like, they like me, right? Like, they're my fans, right? Like, they're fanatic about me. So they joined my Discord, and here I am wanting to play a game with them. And they're like, no, fuck you, V, shut the fuck up. Like, how does that work? How does that work, chat? Like, why would anyone do this? Why would do this? Imagine me joining Pipkin Pippa's Discord, and Pipkin Pippa is like, V, I want to play a game with you. And I'm like, no, fuck off, Pippa. Right? Like, how does that work, chat? Please